All right, we're live. Welcome to episode 25 of my live stream. And in this, we're going to basically get into creating some artwork for Two Stories, Book 2. It's really early in the morning. I woke up a little bit early to try to catch up on doing thumbnails / roughs as like a hybrid for book 2 of Two Stories. And right now, what you see on the screen is what I did in our last stream, which was book 1. Which was page 97. And then today we're going to be working on page 98 of book 2 of Two Stories. So let me show you guys what book 1 looks like. Book 1 came out in December, and this is from Marcosia Press. Book 1, Two Stories by Joshua Kemble, and it is a memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. So that's this book. You can pre-order that on Book Depository, or I would recommend pre-order it or order it through Amazon. 122-page graphic novel. Clearly, you can kind of see the difference of like the covers done in the style the interiors of the book are done in. And so let me show you guys that too. So it's a little bit tighter, and the pages are much more detailed. So the finals will look something more like that. Let's see here, like that. So this is kind of what the finished pages look like. This is what the thumbnail pages look like. So anyhow, I'm closing up working on chapter 9, which is kind of exciting. So this last page should be the end of chapter 9, I believe. So we've just had a sequence where we've moved, like the car has moved to Portland, and I'm feeling like I'm being chased by like a shadow or something to that extent. Okay. Coffee gotten, still kind of waking up, and I hope you guys are doing well and having a good day. I hope friends of mine who live in like Texas or in that area are doing okay. And that's definitely brought some stuff to my mind, so I might kind of bring that up too as I go. So I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's get into the page first, and then I'll talk a little bit about Texas. Let me write it down so I don't forget as I'm working. So Texas, libertarianism, and then Cruz. And I also think it might be cool to kind of talk a little bit about decentralization, because those are things on my mind. So just from like the news recently, and again, if anybody's living out there, it sucks. I hope everybody's okay and safe, and not like freezing. It sounds like a nightmare scenario. Okay, so here we're gonna do, let me close this out and get set up. Okay, so okay. All right, so I think we have this going on. Okay, so I want this next one. So what I do when I'm working out the next pages is I try to break my previous pages into chunks. So let me do that. I might also need to kind of move this down. I worked these on a couple layers. Okay, so there we go. That's one set of panels. Yesterday we worked on that giant whale piece, and I was pretty excited about how that came out. And then today, okay. So what we should in theory have is hopefully like all three of the previous panels, so I can kind of see where I'm at. Okay, there we go. I love it. Okay. Crimson Owl. Yeah. Starting late today. Yes, I am. um, I was just exhausted yesterday when I got home from work. And so the weird thing about making comics, and you guys will probably see this with these streams, is you just kind of carve whatever time you got. And today was one of those days. You'll probably hear that story pretty frequently. But yeah, it's just like trying to make sure I'm keeping on the ball, especially as I'm making progress. I don't want to lose momentum. That's always like a fear, I think, of most people. How are you doing, Ronnie? Ronnie Gunter, working on a really cool thing. Ooh, here we go. I know that feeling. I was born in Missouri. Still have all my family and lots of friends out there. It snowed a lot before it was below zero weather, like 10 degrees. Yeah, I just I hope everybody's okay because that's brutal. It's a sad time, and it brought to mind just a couple thoughts that I'll kind of get into in a second. But it definitely, I feel like we often kind of forget the importance of like infrastructure, and so um, like the electricity. Like I live in a desert area, and it's like in California, and if it weren't for electricity and like utilities, it would be uninhabitable. And so it's definitely something that's like easy to forget, but can be really, really disastrous if it all goes to hell. um, all right, so let's see here. So we got this trying to retain a sense of faith in humanity. Okay, that's what this is gonna say here for the first panel. And here, I think what I'm gonna do, I kind of set this up on the last page knowing I was gonna do this. So this panel here, I wanna have like a zoomed in shot of looking out the window. And this is gonna say, okay, this is gonna say trying. How's your comic coming along, Ronnie? Oh, okay. Don't know what happened there. Trying to retain a sense of faith in humanity. Okay, so what was my thought? Okay, let me kind of work out this, not humanity. Okay, this should be pretty cool. I'm actually really excited about getting to this point in the comic because I think also having the A here would be better. Um, I think it's going to be pretty exciting to get to the just doing typography part, like the type and panel borders section of this. After this will go very quickly. That should be the quickest part of the process. Um, so I'm excited to be almost getting toward the latter end of this part of the book. Plus, the next chapter is really exciting. Um, oh, Ronnie, are you at work right now? Just out of curiosity, because I know you have work. Uh, yeah. Anyhow, okay. So let's see here. I'm gonna draw. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is work out a zoomed in shot of sort of looking out the window. Oh, okay. And I kind of want it to be okay. Here we go. I'm gonna just try to do this very loose because I want to get through these these sections I need to do for the day. I'm also doing the 100 Days of Making Comics challenge, and today is day 49 of the challenge. So pretty excited. I think I've made some pretty good progress on kind of getting this stuff done. Okay, so while I'm working on this, I'll start my thoughts, and they'll probably get interrupted a little bit. um, oh, let me see. I know the cold weather sometimes messes with people with mental illness. It doesn't get super cold in Florida, but it messes with her. Uh, my comic is coming along, and he was saying his wife, not her. Yeah, dude. Weather is crazy, and it can have a huge impact on mental health. I think like Portland had a huge impact on exacerbating my wife and I's mental health when we lived there, because just the constant rain, the lack of sunlight. It's like as human beings, we're kind of designed to be around sunlight, and so that can be pretty disastrous. um, yeah, so one of the things, and this isn't trying to like politicize the event or anything like that, it's just an important thing to kind of think about. But it's like one of the things that what's happening in Texas kind of reminds me of is the importance of centralization in urban planning and interstate issues. So there are certain like industries, because I have a couple relatives that are like hardcore libertarians and kind of fans of the idea of everything being localized and not centralized by like a government power. They kind of believe in the idea of like as much as can be left in the free market should be left in the free market. And I personally feel like I don't like that expression. Fix this expression up. So I personally feel like this is a case in point where, from what I've read online, it sounds like Texas decentralized their utilities for electric, and so then the companies, like functioning on supply and demand, are kind of only generating enough electricity to like what the current demand is, and some of the safe holds that are required on a state level were sort of deregulated. And so whereas like most places with like an electric power grid would have like a good backup of power, and so that you'd have like a slight outage and then you'd be back up and running. They had not planned for this because it was deregulated. It's a free market kind of scenario, and so now you have this important utility that that is needed by like the general population, like cut. And to me, like, nice. Well, Ronnie, it's nice having you on your 15. I hope work's going well. I hope everybody's kind of safe. I know you're kind of a frontline worker, so more power to you. Stay safe out there too, man. Yeah, and Ronnie's working on a really cool comic that I think will be pretty awesome to check out. I think I need more of the shot than that. That was a little too zoomed in. Kind of wondering, maybe I'll just get rid of that and resketch it. Anyhow, like, I guess the part that bums me out is it reminds me of conversations I've had with friends of mine who are really hardcore libertarians, where they talk about kind of wanting decentralized systems that aren't run by a central government. There's like a joke even online where people who are libertarian, I think, get very annoyed when you kind of bring up the problems of public roads and public utilities, like what exactly is going to sort of cause those things to function well, like especially interstate level commerce and transactions, where like a localized government isn't going to be able to oversee the vast like kind of interstate network of like freeways and roads and bridges, and potentially get rid of like someone who's only driven by profit motive, like in this case with like the power companies. It's like if you're only driven by the profit motive and you lose track of the public good in favor for just profit, you can have scenarios like this where maybe it was monetarily less advantageous for these companies to have like a backup for their power grid, and now we have a general swath of the public having to pay that cost. And once again, like, this may not even hurt their profits. And if it does, like, by the time you have society kind of hold these companies accountable for the hurt they've caused the public, you have like a mass amount of the public like paying a very dire cost. And that's one of the main reasons that I can't get on board with like pure deregulated kind of free market libertarianism, because I think it's the poisoning the well scenario. It's an old logical fallacy that exists in a lot of libertarian viewpoints that I've come across, which is like kind of thinking about like, well, I mean, like, free market's great. Public holding the markets to account is generally a really good thing, but there are scenarios where like the damage that a company does may not have a direct impact on the people directly near it. But if a factory is like spewing out poison that is literally poisoning the water of the entire village next door, maybe it's not even the community that the people in the factory work in or the factory lives in, but maybe it's like a neighboring place. Um, and so you end up with this conundrum, like a logical problem where you need something other than the profit motive to kind of keep that in check, especially for longer term harm. So in this case, it would be like, planning and utilities. And I'm not saying government's going to do it perfectly. I'm just saying like leaving things that have greater implications than just making money, like things like utilities that we all rely on in like cold and heat and stuff like that. Yeah, have a good day, man. Enjoy your day at work, Ronnie. Yeah, I just think it can have disastrous consequences, and that's one of the reasons I've never been fully on board with. I mean, one of many reasons I haven't been fully on board with like any of the ideas of like hardcore kind of anarcho libertarians. Is like I think the cost of that is scenarios like this in Texas, where you're going to have mass amounts of community members freezing because you don't have a central authority kind of planning. And you also don't have as many barriers to skating regulatory frameworks that would require you to have, like, say, a backup for your electric grid so you don't leave a swath of the general public freezing. So not a huge thing. I could go way more into that, but for now I'll just leave it at that. I think what's happening in Texas has a lot to do with, from what I've read online, in news articles and stuff, it sounds like they decentralized and deregulated their energy market and sector and put it way more in the hands of the private sector, and that kind of led to a lot of these issues. What's interesting to me is, so Ted Cruz, who's like one of the guys responsible for that deregulation, when the city's having its problems, literally got on a plane, left Texas, and is heading to like Cancun with his family. So the other problem I have with libertarianism is when there's blowback from that from that system, a lot of the people who are propagating it are going to disappear on airplanes to a better place because they're financially in a different position than the people who actually have to pay the cost of the bad decisions. So that is something I was thinking about. So that's Ted Cruz, decentralization, and there we go. Faith in humanity. I also don't like the mouth here. I'm going to correct that a little bit because I want to get the kind of posture. I want to get the framework a little better here. And I think that'll work as like an okay framework. Cool. Not the most perfect, but I think it'll work. Okay, so now we're going to have the next panel, which, oh, this should be a dot, dot, dot. Next panel is going to be the next panel is going to be kind of a callback to this panel. So here we go. And this is going to say, all the while chased by a curse. All right. So for this sequence, I'm kind of trying to figure it out. So that's one of the things that always, at least for me, is really hard to sort of get my head around with pure libertarianism, is like that idea. There's a couple just, it begs like some really core questions that I've never really found a good answer for. And like I said, I have relatives who kind of believe it, so they've recommended like multiple books that are like very libertarian books. Like I think there's one called "What Has the Government Done with Our Money," and there's another one about the Fed that that they're really, it seems like they're very obsessed with, called like "The Creature from Jekyll Island." Um, and it's weird because it's like a lot of these books like will point out sort of problems in our society. Some of them are a little like tied in with conspiracy theory, like the aforementioned Creature from Jekyll Island seems a little conspiratorial, but it does point out some problems with the Fed, and also with like business and markets sort of interfering to kind of rig commerce. But see, my issue with, hey Paul, how's it going, man? What time is it in your area? Am I okay? There we go. How's it going? Oh, there's some kind of lag when I when I try to pull up the comments. How's your comment coming, Paul? Um, yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing where it's like I'll so they'll point out like kind of issues with like the Fed and like and actual problems in society and stuff like that, and that's as far as I'll be on board, where it's like I'll be kind of with them on that, on like the problems, but then we'll kind of disagree on what the solution is. And I think that is always very frustrating conversation to have, but I do think it has a lot to do with, for me, my core disagreements usually have a lot to do with like sort of functional systems. 7:30 a.m. All right. So are you waking up early or having a crazy late night like I am, Paul? um, let's see here. So, yeah. So like to me, that's just sort of a that's one of the core issues, is like trying to figure out like actual solutions to problems, that don't just go, well, it's all government, because I don't think the problems are all stemming from government. I think the problems stem from people, and I think you need kind of like a balance. Um, but I think the issue in general is more like power and people in power, and sort of people in power that's unchecked. Um, so like so I'm kind of playing at talking about these issues, and I can change the subject as well. Like Paul, if you got anything you want to talk about, buddy. Right now I'm just kind of talking about how I hope everybody's okay in Texas with all the craziness, and I also think a lot of that craziness is like a taste of what uh, life looks like under like a decentralized authority, doing things like urban planning for electricity and utilities and roads and stuff like that. So it's one of the key reasons I can never get on board with like something like full out libertarianism. Um, so I hope that's not terrible to say, but that's one of my thoughts. Nice. No, I'm up early. I'm up early. I woke up at like 4 and started maybe like 3:50 because I actually needed sleep. um, cool. All right, you're interested. But yeah, so that's like one of the things I can't wrap my head around with libertarianism, and I think it sort of relies too much on like a cartoon version of people, um, where it's like, I don't know. I find a lot of similarities between the flaws of like libertarian thought and like, and I'm not talking about people who lean libertarian, because that might have less flaws, but I'm talking about like the pure anarcho libertarian kind of viewpoint where they kind of want like no government and like these sort of almost like commune like societies that will somehow just obey property law, and if you need to defend yourself, like you just hire your own private security, like that kind of libertarian. Because that's the people I know who lean that way. When you talk to them, that's sort of one of the core tenets of what they believe. It kind of comes down to like just this idea of like, just get rid of all government, and then things will just sort of re- return to kind of like some weird communal perfection. And to me, like once again, like central planning is a huge weakness in that. What's another one of the kind of weird philosophical weaknesses in that belief system for me too? I think another one, yeah, right? Like Texas is just brutal right now. Um, yeah, I love this. Talking about libertarian, conservative, liberal, I think absolutes are the big danger. I agree, um, with that too. And I would say, actually, while I'm talking about this whole libertarian thing, I don't want to just single out libertarians. Like, I'd say, like, socialists that I know, like friends of mine on the left who are like hardcore socialists. And once again, these conversations aren't having to do with like people who are kind of have some socialist ideas or think like there's parts of government that needs socialization, because I would be like right on board with those people, or people who believe that like elements of capitalism are good, and so we should have a system that has like a hybrid with some of those ideas of capitalism in it and some of those ideas of like libertarianism in it. I'd be all about that too, because that matches my philosophy as well, right? But where it becomes problematic is when you're like kind of getting this like anarcho libertarian or anarcho socialism kind of idea of like no government, decentralized authority, and sort of just like relying on people to sort of behave without. Um, so okay, so that's going to get into my big issue with libertarian or like pure socialist ideas. It's like you can't rely on. Um, okay, so let's bring up property, right? Like, so one of the big things, and I hear this from both, that you'll hear is like about coercion, and that's a huge word that I hear often when talking to these people, where it'll be like kind of making the argument that um, anything that is coercion is inherently immoral, is kind of the take. And they'll say like taxes are coercion, um, that kind of thing. Ooh, I like it. I wish they would move in and out of all these elements. The absolute arguments stand in the way of that. Yeah, I totally agree. um, yeah, so like the thing that that kind of makes me a little bummed about the whole anti-coercion thing is property, because like that's a huge part, especially for libertarians. Um, it's a little bit of a thing with socialists too, because they'll have this idea of like communal property. But the problem is, whatever your opinion of property is, what happens when a bigger person than you wants to come and take your property? Be it government, be it anyone. And in like a pure libertarian system, it's like I've heard these weird kind of unworked out ideas of like maybe the community will have like a community watch program or something like that, but I don't know if I don't know if I guess it just seems like cartoonishly simplified and not thought out, like how you would handle security, how do you handle law. So let's say uh you know, somebody decides like, because the downside is, I guess my point is like, if no coercion, like how do you basically get people to obey law? Because in order to have property rights of any kind, like even if your property right is like the property is everyone's property, whatever the case, like to have a rule without enforcement is like it's a toothless rule, and so you're kind of just reliant on the well-being and good faith of everyone. And the problem is we don't live in a society that has good faith and well-being. So so anyhow, so that baffles me, because I'm like, thanks, man. Paul was just saying, I like how you tilted that frame. Yeah, I keep trying to do that a little bit, just to give a little more movement to things, because I always default to like drawing everything like this, on a on a straight line. Let's see here. All right, so the next section is going to be okay. Very excited about that. Okay. Okay, and this is going to be another kind of, once again, using the 9 panel. Okay, so this is going to say in 2 days. Yeah, right? It's hard not to default to it. So anyhow, like I get fairly kind of interested in like trying to find how do you answer for police forces? How do you answer for law? Like, so say my neighbor comes onto my property, because property is like a huge thing. Property rights are a huge thing, especially for libertarians. And so it's like, how do you defend property rights? Like, um, if you're just saying like, oh well, you get a gun and you defend your own property and you hire militias, then you're basically saying like the libertarian idealized society is going to be a society where people with wealth who can hire massive security firms are the only people who will have right to property. And that sounds like a pretty repressive, terrible system. Or like the strongest, like the biggest will get to it. Ooh, I like it. Yeah, have a good day at work, Paul. I'll be heading there shortly myself. So, yeah, enjoy your day, man. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, so that's one of the ones that I struggle with, kind of trying to figure out how you can answer property law um, without enforcement. And then if enforcement is reliant on like decentralized judges that are just kind of in the community, what's the oversight to the judges to make sure that they're overseeing justice well? I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm going to get a refill of coffee, and then I'm going to do this third panel. So we're getting there. I will work my way through this page. So, okay. Oh, here. Paul was just chiming in. The series The Expanse touches on things you're talking about in an interesting way. Yeah. I like when things like that are worked out in fiction, not in reality. You know, I feel like um, when it's worked out in reality, it's just disastrous. Like I feel like the decentralization of the electric companies really is like just brutal and terrible and bad call on the part of the higher ups in Texas. And so that's kind of a bummer because now it's literally costing people their livelihood, you know. I mean, all systems have problems and whatnot, but like to me, I try to think like what's a philosophy that's going to do the minimal amount of harm to the most people. Like I feel like that should be kind of our basis in thought. And I'm rambling, and I'm by all means not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just kind of thinking about this stuff while I'm working on my comic. Okay, other topic. I found out today there is a sport called hobby horsing. And I'll get into that. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget to talk about that because that's another thing that's been on my mind. Hobby horsing. Okay. Okay. So here we go. I don't know, Paul, if you've headed to work yet. I don't know if you've seen the sport of hobby horsing. It's kind of amazing. if you have time on your next break from work, maybe look that up on YouTube. Okay. So in 2 days, we've made a massive decision. We'd made a massive decision. Upended our, this is going to say upended our living situation. It does suck though that the weather's been so weird. It's been pretty weird for California, and we're pretty blessed with like nice weather out here. But it's like it's been crazy, you know. Like a couple days ago, there were winds that were like 50 miles an hour on the freeway. It's just it feels like I don't know. There are times where it feels like almost like nature doesn't want us here. And that's kind of a bummer too. So at the end of the day, I just kind of hope the best for everyone. Okay, hobby horsing. Okay, hang on a sec. And we're heading to bigger and better things. And what I'm thinking is I'll do like a little overhead shot of Mai and I in the U-Haul here. My thought, but we'll see. That is also a highly unrealistic angle there. It'd be more like this. Wow. Okay. And similarly, like this would be a little more. I mean, it gets the point across for the thumbnail, but still, I want to be at least somewhat conscious of the choices I'm making here. All right, there we go. This makes this look like it's on the wrong side of the road, so I'm going to kind of correct that a little bit too. I might need to correct that up here. Now I'm over noodling a thumbnail, but still good to have a little bit of. There we go. Okay. So hobby horsing is this sport where people ride a fake horse, like a hobby horse, which is like let me sketch it real quick. It's like one of those toy horses, you know, where you have like the toy horse and it's on a stick, and then there's like reins attached to it. People basically do gymnastics, pretending that they're a real horse. And I guess in Finland, it's an official, like an actual sport in competition, where you have people running around on fake horses in competition, and it's pretty interesting. It's just kind of, I don't know. There's some parallels to like cartooning in it because it's like this obscure, weird interest that some people have that they dedicate massive amounts of time to that. Like the general public is just like, what is this? So while I find it amusing and kind of funny to watch, I watched like a YouTube video of it. I also am like empathetic to it because I think while it's easy to judge stuff like that, it's not all that different from cartooning. um, like this weird sort of obsession that I think some people have to make stories from a certain perspective could look really strange to the outer world, I guess. But I have to say, like, it's pretty hilarious to see. And I'm not sure if Jim's seen it yet, like my friend Jim Lujan, but I kind of want to show him if he hasn't, because it definitely almost feels like something that might be in one of his cartoons. um, and if it isn't yet, he might want to include it in one of his future cartoons because it's pretty amazing. I could totally see a Jim Lujan cartoon where it's like sort of from the viewpoint of like a hobby horse competitor, like the top athlete in hobby horsing. All right. I need to see that Expanse series though, Paul. I'll check that out. All right. So here, I do want this to be, I think that overhead shot, like I said, I want that to be like, I also need to kind of check out. Okay. New Hall. Cool. Okay. I don't think I've done a shot from this angle yet. So that's what I want to do here. Okay. So I'm going to draw kind of and I think I'm just going to be really loose with this again because these are sort of thumbnails. Okay, so gonna get this worked out. Okay. So then I want to have have a figure here. And then a figure here, kind of leaning back, looking. Maybe with an arm on the window or something. Okay. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to have just a little bit of detail added to this. Definitely like just noodling here. Noodling the thumbnails. Other than that, just the main thing on my mind has been just trying to like get the time in to get this done, and that's always a battle. And it's funny that it always, I think I even mentioned this, but it always feels like this is the battle you hit extra hard when you're midway through the hundreds challenge, um, where you're trying to spend 30 minutes a day minimum. And I think Scott Cirkland and I are doing way longer than that. But when you're trying to do that without a day's break, it can, that's sort of the catch, is it can kind of become difficult to maintain. I'm going to see what costume are you wearing in this shot. Okay, it's a t-shirt. Funny too, because you're going to notice a lot of t-shirts in these comics, and it's partially because it's slice of life and we wear a lot of t-shirts. Okay, here we go. Have this there. There's going to be definitely like a thing here. Yep, this is working out. Okay. And then similarly, there's going to be a, okay. So just having this hand here. So the downside of conversations like the one I just had is people will kind of be like, this isn't the time to bring up issues like that. You know, we need to just kind of focus on the people. But I do feel like that's a real bad way to kind of dismiss something that's important to think about, like at the time where it becomes really obvious that it's an issue, you know. Hey Jake, how you doing, man? Jake Tfister joining in the chats. He's working on a pretty cool comic. So I always kind of feel like, if not now, then when can you kind of talk about things like that where there's real world examples? Jake, I am working on my comic and I am hoping to wrap it in about an hour from now so that I can catch like a very tiny little power nap, even though I did get some rest. I'd like to get a little more if I can, but I definitely need to get this done. So that's where we're at. How are you doing, Jake? Are you working on your comics? How are they coming along? Yeah, and Jake and I had a really cool conversation yesterday on my last stream about different manga artists and sort of their influence on him, and it was pretty cool. All right, so here we go. So that's going to be sort of this shot. Now I just need to work it out with a little bit more tones and stuff, just for the thumbnail. Wouldn't hurt. And we're going to have, yep, darken those sections. Okay. And this is going to be the thing here. Maybe even, yeah. Thinking out loud here, but I think that there's going to be a couple of these guys. These little light dudes up here. And light dudes here. All right, and there we go. Okay, and I think we're good. So that's that section. So now that we're at the hour mark, oh, dude, nice. What did I stumble into? So I was talking very briefly about, let's see, one of the issues I have with like sort of pure all-out libertarian philosophy, and like the problems of decentralization, and how that kind of ties in a little bit with like the power grid failure in Texas right now, and how I feel like it's anyhow. So I went on this long conversation about that, and then like some of my other issues with sort of like pure libertarian philosophy. Not that there's not truth to some libertarian ideas, but like when you get into like full out anarcho libertarian viewpoints, I see a lot of like problems, and mainly with like decentralization, and then like how people answer to like property rights and how those would be defended, or enforced. So enforcement issues, all that kind of stuff. So I was rambling about that. That's what you walked into. Back to ink slinging. I love it. Ink slinging is the way to go, and I'm looking forward to whenever I get to that process here. All right, well, I'm going to take off for 20 seconds, and then I'm going to get back. And when I get back, I'm going to get... Oh, I do need to note where I am in the script. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jake, or is that stuff you don't really think about? Don't want to think about? I don't know. It's interesting to me. Okay. So bigger and better things, dude. We're almost. I'm gonna highlight this for anybody watching, because I do feel like the game is the slow and steady game. Look at that. Last sentence on the script page, and then I have about 2 more sentences here, and then I'm on the big point of the whole book chapter, which is kind of cool. So we've had all the rising action, the conflict. Now it's like resolution, meaning, all that fun stuff. So I'm pretty excited about getting there. All right, so give me 2 seconds, and then I'll be right back. Let's see. Whew. Might need more coffee too. Get coffee. All right. I love it. Jake has his going on. The process is different here. My script is a math equation. I can see that. Um, yeah, it's an interesting. I kind of feel like that's sort of all scripts. Like even this thing, it's like kind of figuring out how to fill the holes and sort of figuring out how to get from point A to point B and all the ancillary like kind of filler that's needed to kind of get all your points across. I don't know. The writing of scripts is really fun. I kind of actually I would say like this part's very fun, but I'm excited about getting done with this section of the creation process because it just takes a long time. I'm curious, Jake, though, like what's your process from scripts to thumbs? Are you doing the standard thumbs where it's like, you draw like your dude in the car and you're like, okay. At least this is what my thumbs usually look like, where I would have just been like, okay, and then maybe blah 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 blah. And that would have been a thumb for that last panel that's right here. But I'm trying a different approach and we'll see if it works. Um or do you do thumbs? I don't know. I'm curious, Jake. Um that was my process before when I was doing it. Oh, okay. Got it. There's an 8 pager, 8 pages to fill a 3-act structure. Nice. Yeah, with 2 stories, I've been doing like pretty much a typical hero's journey story arc. And so it's got like very transparent titles that tie into like the structure of the story. So the chapter titles are actually story structure titles. I like that. Assess which paper way at the moment working with 11 by 17. Nice. Do you know what size you're reducing to? I'm guessing it's for that anthology you're doing stuff for, right? So they probably have like specific sizing, I'm guessing. Probably either 6 by 9 or standard comic size, which is that kind of weird 10 point whatever by, I can't remember. It's smaller than, I'm actually doing mine at, like my final books are going to be 8.5 by 11, which is a little big. It's like a jumbo size for a comic. But I'm kind of curious. 6 by 9 is a good size for like a book. I like that. That's the size that First Second uses, and I like it. I think I might. I did a graphic novel that's in that size that I might end up pitching to publish. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether I want to pitch to publish, depending on how long this takes. Because I'm like, if this takes more than a year and a half, I think I'm going to need to put out that other book just to try to kind of keep my books coming. Nice. 6 by 9 or 6 by 10. Nice. Cool. I love it. Okay, so yeah, so I did a book in 6 by 9. It's fun. I think it would be fun as a reader because it's a little more portable. The 8.5 by 11 I like because it allows a little more canvas. But it's unusual to do that for comics. We usually go a little bit smaller than that, like that standard comic size, which is close to like 6 by 10. Off the top of my head, I'm forgetting. Okay. What am I mapping out here? Clearer skies. Okay. Here again, I want to look up. Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like that. Okay. Trying to find some images to reflect the border. I like that too. I got to choose whether I want to be structured with the panels or choose to be more three-dimensional. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I use like a very rigid like grid with mine that then I'll break out of. I like that. You can either use a 3-tier or 4-tier structure. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I was mentioning a while ago, you were mentioning 90s image stuff. And one of my favorite, actually, like really creative panelers, I was like really obsessed with Sam Keith as a kid. And I always thought his paneling was really cool. He just did like some really neat, kind of organic paneling. Um, and I always thought that was just really inspiring. Okay, so we have, I think maybe this should be a wide shot now, thinking about it. Um, okay, setting some stuff up. I'm gonna have this here. Okay, and that's what I want to look at. And I think I might do, I wonder if I could do like a really wide shot, kind of thinking about different approaches and stuff. I'm wondering, yeah, what if it were to do that? I actually like that idea. I'm going to do a nice wide shot. Is that crazy? Wide and thin. Hmm. So it could be like where we have like a road kind of similar to this ref. And we could do almost like you're looking at it. Let me look at the, that's what I wanted to see. Okay. Just keep that U-Haul in mind. That might be too thin, but let's check it out. I kind of like that idea because it's just going to be a very brief line that I'm going to have. So let me work out the blocking here. Okay, so then if I have kind of bigger trees, like, okay, we'll have some trees here, some trees here. This might be like, I was trying to work out this panel. Be a little more creative with the way this road works. I actually don't even mind the idea of maybe the road comes off of it, so it's like a low angle. Here's our horizon. Okay. Yep, this is going to be the shot. It's going to be a very strange shot, but I think that's one of the things that's fun with the typical 9-panel structure. Can be a lot of fun. I do like the idea of organic though, and I think maybe for another book I'll do more organic. I do a lot of weird paneling stuff though. There's and I do like clarity. Like to me, that's the key thing. I like this. I do thumbs, but I can't think with compositional shots before I've done all that process beforehand. Same here. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Clearer skies, greener pastures. Clearer skies. Greener pastures. You know what? Scratch that. That seemed like a good framing device, but it's not. Okay, we're going to do here. Here it's going to say clear. Okay, let's try this again. Clearer skies. Greener pastures. I'm going to have this probably be a little bit. One of the reasons it's good to work this out loose before you get, and then this will say, and hopefully how are we doing? Okay. This is going to work. It will work. I will make it work. Okay. Hopefully what? Hopefully less violence. And I'm going to make it a tad bit taller. Is that funny though? Like when you were mentioning Jake, the 90s comics, I was remembering I haven't done like a nice long shot in a little bit. And that's a good device to use. That's in your toolkit as a cartoonist. Okay. That's going to look a little less weird. Have it kind of worked out that way. Okay. So here we go. And we're going to have this here. Oh. But I want to measure this. This is also a nice cut because this is actually the last sequence of this shot. And then it's going to pan back to a conversation before we left that it's going to kind of bookend the chapter with. Okay. There we go. Okay, so let's start kind of working this a little more. And bring, that was not the one I wanted. That was the one I wanted. Okay, so let's do real quick, comp out this. We're at like a good hour and 20 minutes. And I'm feeling pretty good about this page. I'm wondering if I'll be able to wrap this chapter on this page or if I'm going to need another page. That's one of the things that I don't particularly like with my I kind of have a rough map, but I usually, as long as I'm making my book in signatures of 4, which is a good tip for anybody working on like a long form book, make sure you're working in signatures of 4. It should be divisible by 4. So if you need to go an extra page on your book, understand you're going to have to allot for 3 more pages when it comes to a graphic novel or a book format. Signatures of 4. And you can always use filler and stuff like that, but ideally you want to kind of have it mapped out and planned. So, anyhow, point being, I do like having the freedom to go a little longer if I need to or shorter. Um, I feel like mapping these out where you have page one, page two, panel two. In theory, when you're writing it, sounds really good. But until you've roughed it out, I don't know if you realize like how much time you're going to need in a sequence. Now, if you're limited to a specific page count, then that also kind of is going to come into play with like whatever you're making. So if you're limited to like in for instance, Jake, like where you're talking about like 8 pages, it's like you have to make those 8 pages count, and you probably can't extend it longer. So it definitely wouldn't apply to you in the sense of like I'm going to add more pages. um, which can be a real challenge when working on anthologies. The shortest one I've had to do for an anthology a long time ago, I did an anthology with Julia Wirtz. Like I was in her Missed Connections anthology, which was a lot of fun. And I did like a 2-pager. I think that's the shortest. And then I also used to do like 1 or 2 pagers for this comedy comic publisher that was called the Devastator Press, and they made a humor collection called the Devastator, and I used to do little short comics for them every once in a while too. And those were like 1 or 2 pages, but usually not as challenging. So, but it is hard to. It's funny how much thought needs to go into a shorter story. A long form story should have thought going into it too, but especially when it comes to just being concise uh, and making sure you're getting all your story points. Like for me, it's intimidating to try to do that for short form, like more than it is for long form. I have friends who are like the absolute opposite, where they get intimidated by long form and feel free in short form. So it's an interesting conundrum. Let's see here. Could have cut 2, but I want to use all the pages I got. Had to create a whole new story because my first draft required 12. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough, man. Although what's cool is that second edit, like I definitely noticed like my first 2 drafts of this book that I'm working on right now um were like really weird. One of them I had to cut a whole sequence from. Um that's one of the great things about kind of doing different drafts of a story is you kind of get this uh, much tighter story, and usually it comes out better for it. I hope that's the case for you, Jake, where I'm sure it will be, but I have a feeling a lot of the time, like when you do another draft, um, and even with limitations like that, it can really make for really strong work. I'm excited to see what you do. When's your deadline, dude, for the 8-pager, Jake? When do you need to have that accomplished by? I hope it's not like crazy soon. That's going to be the median. Do like a little bit of detail lines just to kind of give a sense of that being the median. Um, this is going to be dark. And then this will have a little bit down here going on. It's kind of fun doing a like wide shot. Okay, so then we're going to have, oh, Nature trees, nature trees. Trees are kind of fun though. Um, okay, because you can kind of play with silhouette a lot and a little bit of um, a little bit more expression in your brushwork, or in this case, just pencil sketching. All right, so there we go. I think we've got that worked out. Love it. That. Hopefully less violence. Okay. Command S. How are we looking for time? All right. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. Kind of work out, but I think it's going to be potentially this might be like a beat for beat kind of thing. So I'm going to just come up with like a little loose grid here because this might break to this. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. No. Okay, I'm gonna stick to the 9 panel, but this will be like more like squares. Let's see. Yes. Okay. This will actually work, you guys. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Lower. And by the way, when it gets to making the kind of final panel borders and stuff, I'll be ruling them out much more meticulously. This is just trying to kind of work in how this is going to work. But I do like the idea of this next sequence taking 6 panels. And that'll make more sense when I start blocking in the script. Whew. Okay. March. March is soon. It's cool. 3 other 8 pagers that I have to throw in the grinder before the 15th. Wow. That sounds pretty insane, man. But cool. It also sounds fun. All right. Packed up. Yep. This is actually going to work, I hope. Okay. Please work. When packed up in our moving truck. Let's see here. U-Haul. Kind of excited about this part of it, I think. Yes, this is going to be good. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of this here. So that's gonna be like we're packed up. Got it. Okay. Hopefully this makes sense, what we're doing here. I kind of have. I had a 20 pager in the bag in under a month, not my first marathon. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, but like the longer you do these things, the more it becomes possible, you know? Um I can still remember like my first comic was like 24 pages. My first like serious comic, as like a after I'd gone to art school and gotten more serious and like better at what I did. um and and I remember that just feeling like a marathon, and it took almost a year to complete for me. And this was like years ago. Um like over a decade ago, I think, at this point. Yeah, definitely over a decade. And and just I remember when embarking on the first graphic novel, just feeling like super overwhelmed. And then that took, a ridiculous amount of time. And then this graphic novel, two stories, took a couple of years less than the first graphic novel did. Um, and So it feels like every time I do this, I get faster and figure stuff out more. Um, in theory. But it is funny because I also feel like there's a little bit of there is definitely I definitely believe there is like a sense of amnesia we all have as comic creators where we forget like what a nightmare and how hard it is to make these things. Um, and then like that enables us. This is my theory. I think it's a running theory that still holds, but I think that enables us to be able to do more of these things, these crazy beasts we're working on. But yeah, it's interesting when it's kind of like marathon is a really good way to put it, Jake, because it definitely feels like much like marathons, like the more you've run, like kind of the easier this gets as it goes. So, okay. So here's my, there we go. We'll see. That's in theory too, right? I don't know if it actually gets easier. It does seem like it though. Um, but I actually enjoy it, and I kind of forget. And this part's actually pretty fun that I'm working on. But I have to say, like this many pages into it, and it's not the most fun. Um, but it still is like creatively engaging, you know. But it's like, yeah, to get these things done just requires quite a lot. It's only amnesia outside the grind until you are grinding at it again and remember how awful. Yeah, exactly right. So I feel like I'm kind of there. Although I enjoy it too. It's weird. It's like a love hate relationship with this making process. Where oh, that was not good. Okay, so here we go, and we're gonna kind of block out this a little bit. I want this to be clear that this is the interior of the thing. Okay. There's the open door. Very loose, but this is going to be a very tiny panel. Okay, so when packed up in our moving truck, now it's going to say ooh, I have a really good idea actually. I might change it up a little bit. Engine running. Okay. Here we go, and I gotta think about this. Okay, is this going to be a call? Yes. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to have different date and time. It's interesting. This is like an era with cell phones that were like flip phones, you know? That was kind of the thing. Very loose now where I'm drawing this, but I think this will work. It's going to be the kind of a close up of that frame. Hopefully, this is making sense. It's going to be the kind of makes sense. All right, so this is going to be just a little bit of that frame. Okay. So I'm doing a little bit of kind of working this out in real time. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this. If I want to do a tall panel for the last panel, I think I do. So I'm going to do a little trick because I think when you come here, it's going to create a blockade. That's in theory. So in theory, you should be able to go like dot, dot, then down here, and hopefully this will guide your eye back here. That's what I'm hoping. And then this will be the last panel. I'm wondering if I should do that though. Let's try it out. Try it out. Worst case scenario, maybe it doesn't work out. Flip phones were the height of mobile development. Then smartphones had to mess it up. There were some really cool things about flip phones. I do kind of feel like the touch screen keypad, while convenient, it can also be kind of a pain in the butt. Here we go. So I love this. Mm. In this case, I usually don't do a repeat like this, but I think this actually works. I usually wouldn't say somebody said something and then have them say it, but this is to highlight this moment. And I think it'll work. Okay. This should make more sense in a second. I think that's like, I wonder how often I say that on the stream when I'm working on comics, like where it's like, don't worry, this will make sense in a second. I do think this will make sense though. All right, here we go. And we're working this part out. Okay. And I want to move that word bubble. After all of that, okay. I just didn't like the tangents it was creating. Okay, so I'm going to have this here, have this like more like that. Okay, cool. I will get in there with more stuff. Okay, so then it's going to say how. Oh, here's where it'll be. It'll be down here instead. How are you holding up? Ask Corey if he can totally counter that for cents in a second. Counter for that cents in a second. Then code a module for the mic to pick it up and register it on the counter. That would be hilarious, like to have a counter for things I say often. My favorite cartoonist is Chris Ware, so I could have like a Chris Ware counter. My favorite band is Fugazi, so anytime I mention Fugazi, it'll just be like bing, bing, bing. I like the idea of a counter. Okay. This will make, yeah, that actually works. Okay. There we go. And that's much better. And I can move that hand a little bit. In my thumbnail. Me wee thumbnail. And I can move this. Let's kind of work out this composition a little better. And I can shorten that. Yep. Now we're starting to get there. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, okay. Don't want to delete. Okay, and then this is going to be like a, yeah, we'll just see a little bit of the door or the, okay. Now I'm going to do shading just to kind of work this out a little more and have that going on. And I'm hoping this will read clearly. If not, I might need to reorganize my panels again, but I do think it's going to work. And next page of the script. Okay. We're almost at the 2-hour mark where I might need to take a little break again. Ooh, Blueprint from Repeater is a good tune though. Dude, Repeater's a great album. Although I feel like Steady Diet of Nothing, Repeater's pretty good actually. Never mind, that's a perfect album. I like all their albums though. All right. Okay, let's see here. So we're going to have this. This is going to have tried to respond but words wouldn't And now what I was thinking will make a little more sense, I think. Fugazi song would be the end of which Fugazi song would be the end credit for Two Stories? I don't know if it's a Fugazi kind of thing, but let me see. I would think uh and see, I'm gonna actually forget the official name of it, but the song from 13 Songs that's about I never thought too hard on dying before. Now I'm feeling dying. I think it's called Give Me the Shot or Give Me the Cure. I always listen to that album front to back, but maybe that's it. Yeah, that's pretty good for the beat. Okay. I think that'll work. I was like Guy, I don't know. Guy's like stuff um, from Rites of Spring, like just what he brought when he teamed up with Mackay is like amazing. So anyhow, whatever. Um, I tend to like the Guy fronted songs. Uh, there's also oh my gosh, yeah, there's too many. Okay, I tried to respond. I couldn't talk. So this is going to be that extra part. I couldn't talk. The adrenaline Okay, getting a little big with my type here. So I'm working out my type where it's filling out these sections. Oh, that was too much. Here we go. We'll get there. A V, and then this will be a few days prior. Okay. Just kind of working out some of the spacing here. So I'm not writing like a giant book here with like huge letters for. And of course, the lettering is going to get worked out in the next stage once I'm done with all of the comps. But still, I want to have a better rough idea of what the layout's going to look like. This was an interesting thing that I'm writing about here, where after all of these events, I literally did kind of shut down and like was literally unable to think. So, I mean, not think, but speak. So I would think something and try to say it, and it literally wouldn't even come out. That was weird. Very brief experience, but it was a strange experience. My and mind couldn't process anything more. Okay. So here, I want to have this. I think I'm going to make this a little smaller because that is getting a little big. Okay. And this is going to be that hand moving down a little bit. Okay. Okay, so let's get this a little more blocked out, and then we can work that out. Okay. Definitely didn't like that. Okay, there we go. I love it. Yep. I'm going to finish up this panel and then take that exact. I love that you called me shoe geezer. Yeah, that's true. I do like shoegaze, and I am a geezer. That's pretty perfect. All right, let's see here. This is going to be this last panel, and then, ooh, it's going to have that last. I think I plotted this pretty well. I like that. Weirdly enough, how this came out. Okay, so like a mechanical failure, it's going to need to be a little taller. I have it right here. Like a mechanical failure. The funny thing is my Wacom tablet is squeaking a little bit, so I might need to change the nib. But it's funny when you hear this little squeaky squeak when you're drawing. Okay. So here we go, and I think we're good on that. Might have time for a very quick hour power nap. An hour of power nap, which would be cool before I have to head into work. All right, so here I'm gonna block in this, and we are pretty much done to go. All right, Jake, thanks for hanging with me while I did my little live stream, and I managed to get this page finished, which is kind of cool. So let's see, boom, that's where it's going to come from. So, all right, and that's the end of that chapter, which is kind of amazing. So we have finished chapter 9. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna post the finished page the finished thumbnail in rough to Instagram, so you guys can check that out there. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you guys haven't yet, if you're watching this after the fact, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. If you want to support what I'm doing and support the second book, please order the first book from Amazon, 2 stories, 122 pages. And that'll do it. All right, guys, have a good night. Have a good night to everyone, and bye.